During the first part of my trip, we visited the northern part of Xinjiang, the Altai mountain range. Now we venture southward, but still staying within North Xinjiang because this area is so huge. Come with me. Stay through the end when I share costs and lessons learned for those of you who would like to visit here one day. Xinjiang is vast. Geographically, it's about twice the size of Texas. The land is rich in natural resources, including petroleum, natural gas, and minerals. It's also a significant agricultural depot. It's a major producer of sunflower, corn, wheat, and even lavender. Supposedly, 75% of cotton in China comes from Xinjiang. The desert climate, with significant temperature differential between day and night, turns out to be great for growing fruit. There's a saying to describe the dramatic change in temperature even within the same day. 潮穿皮袄，午穿纱，抱着火炉吃西瓜, which roughly translates to leather coat at dawn and light linen at noon, stay close to the warm stove and eat cool melon to cool. This saying highlights the quick changes in temperature that can occur here. The temperature change between night and day turns out to be great for all kinds of fruits. Melons especially lock in sweet juice in this environment. There's cantaloupes, sweet melons, watermelons, and others I don't know names of. They also grow a lot of grapes and dates, which gets dried and traded via the Silk Road. The Silk Road goes through South Xinjiang, which I didn't get to visit on this trip. Xinjiang is far from any ocean, as it's smack in the middle of the Asia continent. They say this lake, the Sailimuhu, is the last teardrop from the Atlantic because any remaining moisture brought by prevailing westerly winds would turn into precipitation as it hits the nearby Tianshan mountain range. Not sure that there's any scientific evidence that the water here is associated with the Atlantic, especially as they also say that the blue freshwater in this lake is from glaciers. Sailimuhu has an altitude of over 6,000 feet. Being high up in the mountains means that the weather can change on a whim. On the day that we went on the sailboat ride here, you can see storm clouds moving over one part of the lake while the sun shone on the other part. It was spectacular to watch the display of storm clouds and rain traveling over the lake. If you're lucky and get to visit on a clear day, they say the lake has the most amazing clear blue water. We got a glimpse of that from our way back, when we had to reroute from our planned path through the Tianshan mountain range due to bad weather. That's something to keep in mind, Semper Gumby, meaning always stay flexible. When traveling through high mountains and rough terrain, you have to respect the weather and change your plans accordingly. I was so surprised to learn on this trip of the Mongolian influence over Central Asia. As a nomadic people, the Mongols traveled all over this region and into Tibet as well. Horses are an essential part of the Mongol culture, and their influence spread so that it's also an important part of other local ethnic cultures. Kids learn to ride a horse almost as soon as they can run. An important life milestone is when a child gets his own horse. This horse becomes a child's friend and partner, and if the child should die, the horse will be buried with him as his partner. So it's unfathomable to them that some city slickers like me don't know how to ride a horse. They didn't even bother with the instructions, just told me to get on and away we went. If you know how to ride, definitely ride the prairie on horseback, as that's the best way to see and appreciate the vastness of the land. I was so happy that I stayed on during the hour-long ride without falling. in addition to mountainous terrain, there are also deserts that add to the harshness of this land. Deserts here are not like the deserts of the southwest United States, where vegetations keep the soil stable. The Gorban Tongut Desert is a semi-shifting sand desert, meaning that windstorms can dramatically blow the sands into shifting dunes, which can completely cover up infrastructures like roads. So it's a challenge to build and maintain roads in the desert. As part of the effort to keep sands off the highway, they've planted vegetation next to this highway, the S21. These vegetation actually extend quite extensively into the desert. All that meets the eye here are supposedly planted and not part of the natural landscape. Deserts in China have been expanding, so they've actually put a lot of resources into how to limit desert expansion and repopulate greenery. It's definitely a challenge for our generation. The harsh winds here have carved some rocks and mountains into what's called Yadang Formation. These are formations carved from wind erosion combined with sand abrasion. Sometimes vastly different geological contents underground create a stark contrast above ground. Here at Wucaitán, on one side of the river is barren rocks of various colors due to varied mineral content, but just across the river is an oasis of poplar trees. What a contrast! This reflects the diverse and varied geology that make up this region. Before we finish, I want to share some thoughts that might help if you also have aspirations to visit this part of the world. Early travelers warned of public restrooms without plumbing. Well, I'm happy to report that in 2025, all public restrooms I went to had plumbing. Although be warned that toilets are all squatting toilets, and you typically have to supply your own toilet paper. A couple of things surprised me. First is the prevalence of smokers. Despite signs that says no smoking, people seem to just ignore them. It seems like even high-end hotels have given up on enforcing no smoking in rooms. It's especially disappointing when you walk out into beautiful nature in the morning, take a deep breath, and cough on secondhand smoke. On the other hand, if you're a smoker, you'll be in heaven. The second surprise is that despite how packed some touristy areas were, no one was concerned about pickpockets. It appears they don't exist here. Now that's really refreshing to travel without having to take precautions against people stealing from you. Our trip was 13 days and 12 nights. Traveling to and from took a whole day, so that's 11 days of sightseeing. We spent about $2,600 per person, which does not include airfare. So that includes everything else, including double occupancy hotel rooms, a private tour guide and driver, entrance fees to parks, highway tolls and gas, food, spending money, and tips. It was so worth it to get a package with a tour guide and driver. The vastness of the land means that we spend at least 5 to 6 hours on the road every day. Now we're used to and enjoy road trips, so the duration of car rides was not a problem for us. But navigation tools that Westerners typically rely on, like Google Map, may not be accurate here. So it was great to have somebody else drive who knows where road constructions were and good detour paths. Our tour guide was a lovely woman full of knowledge. I learned so much about the cultures, history, and food. History buffs would especially appreciate events that took place here, from how the folk hero Lin Zexu, turned an arid land into an agricultural depot in the 19th century, to the princesses who served as cultural ambassadors between the Hans and the Logos about 2,000 years ago, to how the Silk Road got started in the 2nd century BC. It was a good cultural exchange, as our guide has never heard of General Tao's chicken, the dish that's commonly served in Chinese restaurants in the United States. Although General Tao, 左宗棠, had quite a role in Xinjiang's recent history. What a blessing and privilege to visit this part of the world.